Jason, as the manager of Elephant in the Room, have you ever found yourself in a situation where there might be conflict, where there could be conflict?
Oh, every day.
With maybe an employee or a customer?
For sure.
Wouldn't it be nice if you knew the super moves that you know now, then, when you first started?
Oh, that would have been amazing.
So on today's show, we're interviewing the Columbia Law School professor, Alexandra Carter. And she's going to teach us all how to negotiate like a boss with practical super moves that you can use to avoid conflict and to get things done. This is a powerful show.
Yeah.
It's like part 2 of How to Win Friends and Influence People here with the Columbia Law School professor, Alexandra Carter.
Get ready to enter the Thrive Time Show.
We started from the bottom, now we hit. We started from the bottom and we'll show you how to get here. We started from the bottom, now we hit. We started from the bottom, now we hit.
We started from the bottom, now we're on the top. Teaching you the systems to get what we got. Colton Dixon's on the hooks, I break down the books. Z's bringing some wisdom and the good looks. As the father of 5, that's why I'm alive. So if you see my wife and kids, please tell them hi. It's the C&Z up on your radio. And now 3, 2, 1, here we go.
We started from the bottom, now we hit. We started from the bottom and
Yes, 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 and yes. Z, it is always ecstasy when you are next to me. How are you doing, sir?
Absolutely wonderful. When we start a show and you give me 4 yeses, I know you're fired up. I know you're ready to go. I know it's go time.
I promised today's guest, I just said to her kind of in the pre-show, I said, this is going to be maybe the best show or the worst show, but it won't be the show in the middle. So I put a
no
lot of
doubt about
pressure
that.
on myself to
Right.
take it down to the bottom or take it to the top. Alexandra, welcome on to the Thrive Time Show. How are you?
Hey, I'm great. With an introduction like that, I mean, how could I be otherwise?
Ooh,
there we
I'll
go.
give myself 1 mega point.
Good start.
So
good
far,
start.
good start. Good
Good
start.
start.
Stay
Good start.
focused.
Stay
focused.
strong. Stay strong. Stay strong.
Don't screw this up.
Don't. You know what?
Don't
Just
screw
think
it up.
about it.
Here, just
Be the ball.
positive thoughts.
Be the ball. Just be the ball.
Here we go. All right. So, Alexandra, you've obviously had a lot of success, but I'd love it if you could share with the listeners how you grew up, or maybe where did you grow up?
So I grew up in Huntington, New York. I was on Long Island, close to the beach. And, you know, I used to spend long afternoons down there just digging for rocks and sort of daydreaming, you know, about what I wanted to do in the future. And believe it or not, from the time I was little, I really wanted to be a professor. I also wanted to be other things like an archaeologist and, you know, at some point, I think a Broadway singer. But eventually I found my way back to my original idea. And here I am, however many years later. I'm a professor and I teach for a living.
And when did you get to that where you committed yourself? I'm going to be a professor. What age was that where you mentally decided I'm going to do this? This is what I want to do for my profession.
You know, I think like a lot of people, I had that dream as a kid and then I put it away for a long time. And for a long time, I didn't feel clarity about what it is that I was going to do, because if you're going to be a professor, you have to teach something. And I wasn't sure what that something was going to be. And it wasn't, in fact, until I was in law school and I enrolled in the course that I now teach. And it was just a random coincidence. A friend came up to me and she said, "Hey, Alex, you know, I'm taking this class and it involves a lot of talking. I think you'd be great at it." And so that was how I enrolled in the class.
Yep.
And the first time, it was called the Mediation Clinic.
Yep.
I had no idea what mediation was. And I sat down in front of a couple people who were in conflict and I helped them negotiate better. And sitting in that dingy courtroom, it was as though I heard Morgan Freeman's voice coming down from above saying, "Alex, this is it. This is what you're going to teach for the rest of your life."
Can you share with the listeners what your official title is? I would refer to you as kind of a big deal, but can you explain what your actual title is?
You know, actually, my daughter got me a nameplate for my desk that says I'm kind of a big deal.
Oh, nice,
So,
nice.
Perfect.
In my office at Columbia, that is actually my title. But what I'm a clinical professor of law. What does that mean? It means that I'm a law professor who practices. I run a clinic. And so, yes, I research, but I also teach people how to do stuff. It means that my students and I practice together and we work together to help people resolve conflict.
And you have decided to write a new book called Ask for More, 10 Questions to Negotiate Anything. What inspired you to write this book, and why did you decide not to name it Whoomp There It Is?
Let me tell you, I went through, you must have heard this before. Naming a book is one of the worst parts of the process.
Oh, yeah.
I came up with so many duds, and my editor would say something, tactful like, Alex, great job, keep going, which I think is code for your titles are terrible. So really why I wrote this book is because by the time people get to me, I work as a mediator. What that means is usually I'm seeing people by the time they're in court, so business relationships are pretty far gone. Personal relationships are pretty far gone. And I realized over time, having helped now thousands of people negotiate better, that I had tools that could help people avoid seeing me in court. And that if I could just give them those tools earlier, they could not only prevent conflict, but they could also feel a lot more personal satisfaction. They could reach goals. They could deal with things in the home as well as at work. And so I wanted to write something that would give everybody the opportunity to understand how they could negotiate better in any circumstance.
Now, Alex, in other words, you wrote a book to put yourself out of business.
Right.
Here's the thing, right? Conflict is as old as humanity itself. There will always be, the cases that really, really need somebody from the outside. But I really wanted to give people tools, just even in their everyday life, whether they're looking to ask for a raise, they're trying to get their kids off the screens, whatever it might be, these tools that they could use to make their lives just a bit better.
Wait a second. How do you get a kid off their screens? This is a breakthrough moment. I need some dramatic sound effect.
This just in.
This just in. Wow, every parent should run and buy this book immediately, if not sooner. Okay, so how do you get a kid off a screen? Walk me through that one. You're mediating.
Yeah, so there's going to be an extra charge for that information.
Oh yeah, we'll pay. I got my credit card right here.
We're going to have to negotiate. So how I've gotten my child off the screens is basically the same way I've done anything else, whether that is asking for a raise, whether that is negotiating with a client, whether that is trying to figure out what the next step in my career is going to be. I did it by asking a question. And when I asked a question, we opened up a world of dialogue and we figured out what was going on with the screens and we were able to come to a resolution. So if you'd like to hear what I did, so my daughter was complaining about my screen time rules, and I sat down with her and I said, okay, so, here are my goals. My goals are to have you do your schoolwork and also be able to get time that's good for your brain that's away from the computer. Tell me more about what the screen time does for you. And it's interesting. I assumed that screens were a way for her to avoid homework. But what she said was, screens are the only way right now that I can keep in touch with my friends. And knowing that that was her priority, we had a totally different conversation. And in fact, I asked her for her ideas about how we could balance the two, and we wrote up an agreement.
I love that. How old is your daughter, by the way?
She's 9, and let me tell you, she's a chip off the old block.
Sounds like
really
it.
Totally outmatched here at home.
What I want to do is one of the things that I find a lot is whenever somebody is on the opposite side of an argument, usually we start off by name calling. Now, I'm not suggesting that we should do this. I'm just bringing it up. This is an example.
Yes.
So, Alexandra, I'm not prepared to even ask you this question. So, again, it could be the worst interview of all time, okay? But there's somebody out there, as soon as they hear Columbia Law School, right away somebody thinks to themselves, oh, yeah. They're going, yes, this is a great thing. Columbia. Oh, come on. Yeah.
Come on. Boom.
Oh, come on. Now, but there's somebody else who says, did you just say Columbia?
Yeah.
Right
you don't even like the country.
Right. And so you get sometimes false questions that are asked. So I'm going to ask you a false question, Alexandra, and I want to see if you can help me learn a few of the tips in your book. Because your book, Ask for More, 10 Questions to Negotiate Anything, helps us deal with these. And I'm going to create some tension here, and you help me out here. So if I were to say, Alexandra, why is Columbia crap? You see this stuff. You see politicians all the time saying this to each other. It's like, my good friend from Delaware, how are you, sir? I'm glad that you didn't fall asleep over there, you jackass. Anyway, but, people like attack each other personally, and then logic is blocked. So if somebody starts off with a personal attack like that, what kind of tips does your book give to deal with those kind of situations?
I'm a little torn here because on the one hand, I just want to answer you, because our football team is crap.
Oh, there we go.
And let me just tell you that the Columbia football team, hopefully nobody's listening on this call, but we truly are, the whipping child of the Ivy League. But if I were going to go back and actually answer the question, right? If somebody said, why is Columbia crap? I would ask a variety of things. I would say, tell me more about what you've heard about Columbia in the past. I would ask, when you say crap, can you tell me more about what that means? Because believe it or not, people have different ideas about what crap means to them. Just the way people have different ideas about what fairness means to them. I've had people say over and over again over the course of now more than a decade helping people negotiate, that's not fair. And when I ask them, what does fairness look like to you? The answers I've gotten are $200,000, $2,000, help setting up my kids' therapy appointments, removal of 6-feral cats from a neighboring property. So crap, like fairness, is kind of in the eyes of the beholder. So I would basically honor that person's objections. I wouldn't get my back up, and I would simply ask them to tell me more about it. And I found that over time, when I do that, when I handle people's objections, when I honor them, when I hear out what they have to say, it's like magic. A lot of the defensiveness melts away. Yeah. And when people feel like you made an effort to get it, they're going to make an effort to get you.
Now, this is interesting because what you said, I fundamentally agree with. We talk about it a lot on the Thrive Time show and when we do our sales trainings and stuff, as we call it the deal wheel. But the idea is you've had to have trained yourself to say, tell me what you mean by that before you're attacked, right? I mean, don't you have to kind of role play it? Because in the moment, when you run into these things, if you haven't read your book, right? I mean, Alexandra, in the moment when you get attacked, what do we do by default if we haven't purchased a copy of your book, ask for more, and we don't know these moves? What do people do by default if they don't know to say, tell me more?
Oh, how do we normally react to surprise? Not well. Right? Normally, if somebody attacks us, we attack back. And in fact, some of us go into negotiation bracing for an attack.
Oh boy.
And so we figure the best defense is a good offense and we attack first. The point of ask for more, one of the points is to give you tools that you can use so that even if you go into a situation and you get something you didn't expect, you've got several things you can do in the moment that are going to be useful and productive and might help the other person come around and see reason. For example, I'm going to give you questions and, let's face it, I mediate in the courts of New York City. So I've seen really every kind of word, of behavior. I've had people threaten to taser each other and worse, right? So over time, I've come up with a list of questions that you can use when you're faced with less than productive behavior.
Great, yeah.
Another thing that I like to do is summarize for people, right? So sometimes if somebody's going off and they're like, well, Columbia is complete crap, and here are all the ways that it's crap, and they're just venting, and they pause, and they're waiting for me to attack back and get mad. And instead of doing that, I say, okay, so let me make sure I've understood. So what you've said is that Columbia is crap, the football team is crap, the lacrosse team you've said is also crap, the facilities in the gym you've said are relatively crappy, and I will just summarize it, and I finish and I say, what did I miss?
Yep.
And just hearing their own words played back.
Oh, yeah.
Right? You can imagine somebody's like, I'm going to take a different tack now.
You're like a modern day, Dale Carnegie, or some people would say you should pronounce it as Dale Carnegie because that's what he wanted. The book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. You're kind of a modern day. This book is like a 2.0 on that. And before Paul Hood asks you these tough questions, he'll probably paint you into the corner and do that kind of thing. I have one more question about these heat of the battle moments. My wife years ago, she bought me tickets to go see the Minnesota Vikings play the Cardinals. And I love football. Brett Favre was my guy at the time.
Were they St. Louis at the time?
They were the Cardinals of Arizona.
Arizona.
And it was Brett Favre's final season. And my wife called my assistant. She called everybody, and I every hour of my day is scheduled. So like this interview occurred on time. I cannot handle operating without a schedule. So I go into the call center, and there my wife is, and nobody is working. And right away I'm going, what is going on? It's a call center, a center for calls.
Someone make a phone call.
And she's wearing a Brett Favre jersey, and she's holding tickets, and she says, surprise! And I immediately said, and I was a young guy. I was probably 26, 27. I shouldn't have done it, but I said, what in the crap is going on? Why isn't anybody working? And why are you wearing a Vikings thing? I did not react well at all. And she was like, I got you tickets to see Brett Favre, you jerk. And so she gives me the airplane ticket. She gives me the tickets. And I board I go to the airport by myself and she arranged it where I was going to go meet my friend. And my friend had just got back from his second tour of duty in Afghanistan. And his mom arranged it where I was going to meet him at the airport. And they did the perfect job of arranging it. But I didn't react well to my wife giving me tickets and to her essentially shutting down the call center to surprise me. I did not react well. I finally, when I got to the Minneapolis airport, I finally dug myself out of the hole. I apologized for being a jerk and for saying intense things in front of our whole team, essentially attacking her without knowing it. Then I call my buddy Joe, who's got back from Afghanistan, and he didn't react well to the fact that I was going to be meeting him at the airport he wanted to know why he'd been lied to by his own mother about this rendezvous. So he didn't react well to seeing me, and we're like best friends. Why do people naturally not react well when they're surprised? What is that all about? Why do we do that?
It's fear. You know, a lot of times, in fact, in negotiation, when I see anger or irritation or, frustration, not that I have ever experienced any of those things myself.
Of course not.
Okay?
Of course,
so
yeah,
just
of
for
course,
the
yeah.
record,
Other
right?
people.
I have a perfect temperament at all times.
Yes.
Hopefully
Yes.
my husband will not be listening to
Cool
this.
Hand
But-
Luke is your nickname.
Right. But for other people who experience those emotions, what usually that is fear. Because when we're worried that we won't be able to, for example, you sound like the kind of person who you have your day planned out and you also have people who depend on you.
Yes.
Right? You've got a call center, and so you're immediately thinking of, are we going to be able to serve, our customers?
Correct.
What about, the rest of the folks here?
Yep.
Who am I letting down? And so when you get that anger, right, it's usually that somebody is scared on the inside.
Yep.
I see it all the time. And so, one of the ways that I can take that down, right, is to reassure or to summarize, that type of thing. And by the way, right now, when people are stressed, so for example, if you're back to back all day long in meetings, you're already having a higher level of stress. Right now, negotiating during coronavirus, same thing. People are super stressed, and so you're going to see more of that anger, right, that comes out because people are more scared.
Agreed. Paul,
Yes.
I give you permission now to ask the expert of negotiation, the author of Ask for More, anything you want to ask, and if she hangs up, we will know she did not like the question.
Passive aggressive.
Well,
Okay,
first
okay.
question, we're going to test her truthfulness. So when you were young and you were sitting on the beach and you were daydreaming about what you wanted to be someday and
Digging up rocks.
yeah.
Okay.
Did you ever dream about being an accountant?
Never.
Oh, okay. She's truthful. She's honest. That's why we wanted before I asked it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Does anybody-
Nobody dreams about being an
I was
accountant.
going to say, does anybody?
Nobody does. So the serious question is but typically in a negotiation, the one that loses their cool or gets emotional is the one that loses, I would say. If you can argue facts and just stay relaxed and don't
I've
go
seen this,
overboard.
yep.
Yeah. So, but on the opposite side of that, do you ever think emotion plays a role to win a negotiation? In other words, if I am negotiating with, for instance, if I'm a car salesman and I can get that person buying the car emotional about the car, I've won typically. So is emotion ever maybe it's an underhanded thing, but what's your thoughts on using emotion to get the upper hand in a negotiation?
You're a dirty negotiator, Paul.
I am.
You are.
I'm an
Wow.
accountant. What do you think?
Intense.
Well, emotions are actually how we make decisions. I think a lot of times we think that facts are how we make decisions, but emotions are actually what drive where we spend our time and our money. You know, that's how a lot of advertising is effective, for example. You know, and advertising is kind of a form of negotiating. It's about steering relationships with consumers, you know, and making people feel a certain way or not feel a certain way really, you know, promotes either buying or not buying. So one of the things I tell negotiators in advance, right? Because again, the negotiation does not start, let me say this, it doesn't start when you sit down with somebody else. You're way far into it by that point. Negotiation starts at home with you. It starts with you figuring out, among other things, your feelings, your needs, your goals before you sit down with someone else. And if you don't do that, then you're headed for what I call a negotiation one-car accident, right? Where you're going to talk about a car, right? You're going to crash that car inside the walls of your own brain. So first, you have to come to grips with what you're feeling before you get in the room. And that is the best way I found to then kind of manage some of those emotions there. I have seen people use emotions as tactics, especially anger. I think sometimes people feel like if they get angry, they're going to do better and get the deal. Actually, research shows that's not necessarily the case. You might, in the short term, right, sort of, you know, intimidate somebody into giving something up. But what are the odds that that person does business with you again? You know, I think a lot of times people forget that even in an adversarial negotiation, usually you're partners or you're in some kind of a relationship once that's done, right? Even with the car, you know, I mean, I've now leased my car, you know, 3 different times from the same guy. You know, and the first time I went in, I was like, look, if this all goes well, I'm going to be coming to you again in 3 years. So let's figure out something that's going to work for us for the long term. So yeah, I would get right with your emotions and write those down before you get in the room. And also then the tools I teach in the book, right? So asking questions and summarizing, even if you find yourself saying, oh God, I'm really longing for that car. If you buy yourself a little bit of time with some good questions, you might be able to get back to a place where you can make a decision. Yes, maybe you really want the car, but you want it at a price that's going to work for you.
You bet. Great
Okay,
answer.
now
Hey,
Z,
Alex,
you have a tough question.
I know, Alex. Maybe you're a professional mediator, and you're probably one of the world's best, right? Okay,
You know,
we'll just go with that.
I don't believe there's an international ranking of mediators.
I think there
but
is.
I'll
And
check that. While
You're
we're
near
on
the top. You're near the top. I double checked.
boy.
Clay and I have had a long-standing argument, a long-standing difference of opinion about mediations, and I was hoping you could maybe help mediate this between us.
So
Clay-
I'm going to mediate your opinion on mediation. So
Correct.
we're having
Wow.
like a meta mediation. Is that what's happening?
It's above
It's
mediation.
kind of like
It's
a
above it.
pre-mediation, kind
New
of like
level.
foreplay mediation. I don't know, something like that, you know?
Right.
But
fine.
Clay's a firm advocate that whenever he's mediating with someone, he shouldn't wear pants. And I have real issues with it. So I try to get him, when he goes into a mediation, he should wear pants. And what do you think about that? What's your take on that?
You know, I feel like I saw, you know, somebody who has that same vantage point. There was a newscaster, right, who wasn't wearing pants and got caught with his pants down over Zoom or whatever it might be.
No, a serious question. Out of your top 10 points that you make in your book, what is your favorite move of the 10? Because they're questions to ask. But so, what is your favorite question to ask of those 10? If you could only have one in your gun walking into mediation, what's the one that's gotten you the most success, or is it just a series of questions? Because I haven't read the book yet, but I'm going to now because I wanted to learn how to get more.
Oh, awesome. Okay, so can I give you one question and one tip?
Okay, do it, please.
All right, good. See, I just negotiated. All right, so my question, the question that I want to give people to ask on every occasion, and it's kind of a trick because it doesn't have a question mark at the end.
A tricky
it's
question.
It's just
I
2 simple
like it.
words. It's tell me. Tell me is the question that I ask on every occasion. And let me give you 2 examples of, you know, how you could think about it, right? So I counseled a startup company. They had a product that they were desperate to get in with a certain distributor. And twice they went in with a gorgeous pitch deck. They pitched, they thought they had it, they didn't get it. The 3rd time we talked first, and I was like, all right, you're going to take a different approach. They went in, they did not put up the pitch deck, and they said, you know, we met twice before, we're meeting here again. Tell us how you're seeing the sector and any concerns you have with our product. And that, after a couple of seconds of stunned silence, the person basically said, all right, you want to know why you didn't get the deal? Here's why you didn't get the deal. I didn't think that my customers were ready for this premium product. Basically handed them the keys to the kingdom, and then they had a target to aim at. They got the deal, and they landed the six-figure deal during coronavirus. Second thing, when I was negotiating with my husband over the home office, which I am totally occupying right now, by the way, right? We've got one home office.
Yeah.
And instead of, at 9 a.m. saying, why do you always get the home office and I'm stuck in the kitchen? I waited till Sunday night and I sat down with him and I said, tell me what your week looks like. And let's look at what my week looks like and figure out a plan that's going to work. And when we did that and he saw the number of interviews that I had, he said, you know what? I think for now it makes sense for you to take the home office. And why don't I create one in this other room in the house? So tell me, is the magic question that you should ask on every occasion. Okay, so that's the question. And let me give you the tip now.
Ooh.
The tip is, okay, I'm going to give you in this book 10 great questions. Don't wreck them, okay? The number one way that people wreck a great question is they ask the question and they keep talking. For example, right?
Mm-hmm.
What do you need to close this deal? Would $10,000 do it? No, right? You don't know what they needed. Maybe they needed 5 and you overpaid. Maybe needed mentorship. So my biggest suggestion to people is 3 words: land the plane. Ask your great question and close your mouth and let there be silence, because a lot of times silence can be great for you in negotiation.
Oof,
Okay.
I love it. I love it.
Z, let's have a moment of silence right there as we just sort of
Can we?
observe the profundity of this moment. And what might or might not be the best or worst
Silence
interview
means not
experience.
talking, by the way. You're still talking. I can tell. I can see your mouth moving.
I feel like I'm back in Catholic school here. This is amazing.
He's still talking. I can tell he's talking. He's talking inside of his head.
He is. He's not.
He's talking.
He's not.
He's just not verbalizing it, but he is. He's talking. He's very loud to me.
Okay, now this is my final question here, and I want to get your take on this. Alexandra, did you ever watch a lot of Saturday Night Live growing up?
I did watch some.
Do you
Yes, when I could
remember?
stay awake.
Do you remember when John Goodman? Maybe you saw this one where John Goodman, the actor, the comedian, played the part of a referee. Did you ever see that one?
I'm not sure. You'd have to refresh me.
Okay, it was called Referee Pittman, and it was one of my favorite skits, and I'm sure it's on the YouTube somewhere. But these people would put their hands up, and the premise was, see, he's an NFL referee.
Right.
And he gets to do press conferences. Normally it's the players.
Right.
But they get to ask him.
Right.
So people put their hand up and they go, Referee Pittman, I got a question. He says, go ahead. Sir, in the area where most people would keep a soul, what do you keep there? And then he's like, that's a great question. I get asked that all the time. Thanks a lot. And then the next question, sir, are you completely blind or do you just hate people? And he's like, well, that's a great question. And I do hate your team. Thank you. And then it's like, sir, were you even looking at the play? No, a lot of times I just make a call based upon how I feel at the moment. I didn't see the play at all. And they're asking these questions, but they're like non-questions. They're question statements.
Oh, sure.
So I would want to know why in politics, whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, why is it that both members of the media, whether it's the Republican media or the more liberal media, the more progressive media, the more conservative media, what is the fascination that members of the media have with question statements? Those attacks. There's like an attack mixed with a question. Why is that? Why does that work?
Yeah, I think it goes back to what's the goal of your conversation.
Okay.
If the goal is to produce a 10-second gotcha moment that you can then play for eyeballs, you're going to ask one type of question. Ultimately, I think most of us, when we're negotiating, are trying to ask the kinds of questions and create the kinds of conversations that are not only going to lead to a handshake, but are going to lead to that person wanting to do business with you for the rest of your life. Or in my case at home, lead to your spouse not wanting to divorce you. And so honestly, I think that our political dialogue could benefit a lot from people listening to each other. I'm glad actually that this book is coming out in an election year. And in it, I've talked about several stories of, politicians who did the unsexy thing and actually listened to the other side and succeeded in getting some stuff done. So, media's got, they're looking to drive eyeballs. Most of the rest of us are just looking to live better lives and create better deals. So it's a totally different type of conversation.
That makes sense. Well, folks, if you're out there today and you're wanting to improve your communication skills, and I know you are, make sure you check out the new book, Ask for More, 10 Questions to Negotiate Anything. And, ma'am, I appreciate you so much for taking time out of your schedule to be here with us. And I can't tell you thank you enough.
Thank you so much. Please don't call me ma'am, though. Call me Alex.
Alex. Okay,
Alex.
Okay, Alex. In my face. Hopefully you have a great rest of your day.
There. Yeah, great job, Alex.
Thanks so much. It was really a lot of fun talking to you guys.
And now, without any further ado, 3, 2, 1, boom!
There have always been people who don't believe. They don't believe in hard work. They don't believe in responsibility. Ultimately, they don't believe in themselves. They believe in shortcuts, in luck. They believe that outside circumstances control who succeeds and who doesn't. It's just the luck of the draw. But you are not one of these people. You believe that no matter what your circumstances tell you, success is still possible. And you accept this responsibility because you want to achieve something great. You're hungry for it. You chase it from the moment your eyes open in the early morning. You chase it into all hours of the night when others have given up, when others have said that it couldn't be done. You've kept pushing because you believe that success is not a game of chance. Success is a choice that you make every single day. That's what you believe.
Discover the world's most affordable and effective business school today at thrivetimeshow.com.